Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back once again to the longest running show in the world about data. It's called DM Radio. Yours truly, Eric Kavanaugh, here with my good buddy Tom Ogenthaler. His last name means eye on the coin, in case you were wondering. That's what it means. My name means follower of Kevin, for whatever that's worth. So apparently the first Kavanaugh was a Kevin. But today we're going to talk about a very, very interesting subject, folks. We're going to be talking about what on earth is going on out there with ChatGPT. And folks, I cannot overstate the significance of disruption happening right now. I'm just going to walk through a few things first, and I'll show you my screen for a couple of minutes, and then we'll do our normal radio show. But we are witnessing a catastrophic collapse of the old way of doing things. And a company that's in the crosshairs of this tremendous change is Google. Google, of course, has been a powerhouse for decades, since at least what, the early 2000s when they first started taking off. So 25 years, Google has been a dominant player. And if you think about from a publishing perspective and from a marketing perspective, these two trades are in the crosshairs. Inbound marketing, many software vendors and many other companies in the brick and mortar world use AdWords, Google AdWords, to attract attention, to get folks to pay attention to their things. What do? You buy AdWords, and then your links go up, and those links come back to your company website. That is a very standard procedure that we see in the world of marketing and has been for the last 20 years. So, in a way, Google kind of became muscle bound because it got so much business. I mean, to this day, you can search for something on Google and you'll get so many ads, you can't even count them. That will be changing, I promise you, because inbound requires that someone click on a link and come to your site. Once they get to your site, you can do all sorts of things to understand who they are, understand how to capture more information about them, get them interested in your products or services. This, again, is especially true in the world of enterprise software, where you really want to get a lot of people coming in to check out your information, to check out your site. So you buy the AdWords. Well, with ChatGPT, now it's just giving you complete answers. And ChatGPT is very, very interesting. Of course, it's changing. It's no longer open AI. Technically, it's closed AI. Really, it's a black box these days, but it's still very, very powerful. And we're going to show you a little bit about how it works and how we discovered the way to get ChatGPT to notice you. But point being, the old way is dying. And publishers, digital publishers, are in big, big trouble. I read a stat the other day that Stack Overflow lost 50% of their traffic over say, a 3-month period because people were just going to Copilot inside of GitHub to get their questions answered. Well, guess what, folks? If you don't have to leave your window where you're getting your job done to find something, you're not going to do that. If you can just get it right in that one window, that's what embedded analytics is all about, for whatever that's worth. So you don't want to have to leave your window to find things. And now people can just ask questions of ChatGPT. So how does ChatGPT work? We're going to talk about that. I'm going to tell you this little story that we figured out. So, first, remember, Google built its empire, a multi-trillion-dollar empire, on keywords. It's all text-based. And that seems enough. It seems sufficient. It's certainly been enough for years now. It seems like that should be enough to get the job done. But text is actually a very flimsy layer of abstraction that sits atop the real world and ostensibly represents what's actually happening in the real world. Video is a much different story. Video has all sorts of richness to it. Video is a very clear depiction of the real world, assuming it's not manipulated, which it certainly can be. But even then, you're seeing what you see in the real world. And if you notice, think about tools like Otter and Fireflies, and Zoom has their own, and Gong for sales optimization. What are all these engines doing? They're all pulling information from your video, and they can now capture and measure confidence of voice, engagement level. They can measure thoughtfulness of questions, clarity of answers. All of these things can now be modeled and measured. And I can promise you, they are being modeled and measured. Now, the other thing that's being measured, especially by OpenAI and the other big guys, is channels of content. So if you have a YouTube channel with 450 videos, long form videos like we have, that are all focused on enterprise software, all long form, deep content, lots of gritty, granular details in them, that's going to score very high if someone is searching on ChatGPT or prompting about enterprise software. And I promise you that OpenAI and Google and Perplexity and all these guys, they're building a reference architecture which their system uses to understand which different channels are good for which different topics. And they span that all out. Now, if you have a big channel and you've been staying focused on one thing and then you pivot and change, that's probably going to lower your score or change your score or change the dynamics. But the good news, I think, is that SEO, search engine optimization, a lot of times was around trickery. People were trying to game the system to get the algorithms to think that there was something there that there really wasn't. And I think a lot of that stuff is going to go out the window. I think it's going to be harder to trick these new engines than it was to trick SEO. So that's good news for authenticity, for good trusted voices. That's pretty good news. But with that, let me go ahead and share my screen here, folks. And I'm going to show you a thing or two about what we discovered. And this is a really fun example that we'll share. So hopefully you can see my screen here. Here's an article I wrote a while ago. Well, I had the opportunity to meet an amazing man named Dr. Moshe Cohen. He happens to be the guy who designed Israel's Iron Dome. He led the team, also Barak 8, Arrow 3, all these next generation defense systems that were able to shoot down thousands of ballistic missiles that Iran fired at them a few weeks, a couple months ago. It actually started about 6, 8 months ago, I think, with the first volley, and then there was another volley, and these things kept happening. Of course, there was a big war for at least 2, 3 weeks. Well, they designed their own foundational model for signal processing. They have incredibly powerful radar. Long story short, met this guy. He's an amazing guy. Had him on the show. And luckily for me, before I had him on the show, I was sure to ask ChatGPT about him. And so here's what I asked. Who designed the Iron Dome in Israel? Was it a guy named Moshe Cohen? Thanks. Of course, ChatGPT came back and said, no, Moshe Cohen was not the designer of the Iron Dome. It's so confident about these things. It was actually developed by Rafael Advanced Defense Systems, Brigadier General Danny Gold, etc. It goes on and on. No mention of Moshe Cohen. Then I had him on the show, and we, of course, broadcast. We broadcast coast to coast, but most importantly, we placed the show on YouTube through some marketing behind it. We also wrote this article you can see right here on LinkedIn. Did some marketing behind that. A week later, I asked ChatGPT again, what role did Moshe Cohen play in the Iron Dome? And now it says Dr. Moshe Cohen plays a pivotal role in advancing Israel's missile defense capabilities, particularly through its contributions to the Iron Dome system. Hello. That's pretty exciting. And you notice that ChatGPT has citations now. They figured out early in the game, got to get those citations in there so people believe us. And look at that. It's my article, A Golden Dome, a golden opportunity to preserve the West. He was also in a couple other places, the Times of Israel, the Jewish Report, and of course, here's the LinkedIn article again. And when I was reading this part, I thought to myself, this is very interesting. This system features a four-dimensional radar array capable of tracking altitude, azimuth, range, and velocity with exceptional spatial resolution. Yeah, that's exactly what we talked about on our show. So I scroll down and it says, for a more in-depth understanding of Dr. Cohen's work and insights into missile defense, you might find this interview informative. And it's our show. What do you know? So let's think about this. What just happened here? I can tell you what happened. What's happening is that when you do a prompt for ChatGPT, what it's going to do is it does it first and tells you. It's like now searching, and it searches around depending upon what's in your prompt. It's looking for keywords. Proper names are, of course, very valuable because they're rare, but it can also find other terms as well. And what it does is it goes out and it finds a bunch of different pages. It likes to find 5 to sometimes 7 or 8 different sources of information. And then it pulls all the text from those sources into a cache, a sort of intermediate cache. And it uses that cache to write the summary, which you then get. Well, what does this mean? So here's how you do it, folks. What you need to do if you want to get your technology noticed by ChatGPT is you need to do some long form content, get on videos, on YouTube videos with people who are trusted voices because they're going to score high as you look around the interwebs. Like I said, ChatGPT and these other models, they're going to be looking for trusted voices. They built out a reference architecture to know what's where, who's an expert in analytics, who's an expert in security, who's an expert in baking. They have this reference architecture, I promise, and it is malleable. It changes, especially if you change, that's going to affect your efficacy essentially. And then you also want to pay attention to the fact that they're trying to triangulate the truth. So it's very important to have articles that complement the message in your video. Those articles should be on trusted channels like LinkedIn, like Reddit, like Medium, like Forbes, for example. If you can get into some bigger publications, that's okay. That helps as well. Anything behind a paywall is no bueno. These engines don't like, they can't get behind paywalls. So if you got your stuff behind a paywall, then it's going to hurt. And I'm telling you, folks, what we're witnessing is a just tremendous disruption to the status quo because all the traditional publishers out there, they are relying on Google ad search for people to find them. They're relying on Google. And now, if all you get are these little citations, what percentage of people do you think click on that link? I'll tell you, it's probably 1 to 2%. So if before you were getting 1,000 views to your website, now you're going to be getting 20. 20 instead of 1,000 is a huge drop. And you're seeing this everywhere. I talk to marketers all over the place all the time. Everybody is seeing this. All sorts of patterns are changing. And the fact is, this is a new way. This is the new way of doing business. Now, I can't get through this without giving one pitch to our new network pal, a guy named Nikolai Mirchukov, a very smart guy. He's a Russian guy I've known for a long time. He has the Liquid platform he uses. He built what is essentially Google Ad Manager. He has his own version of Google Ad Manager. He told me just the other day that a lot of people don't realize when Google bought DoubleClick way back in 2007, that's what this is. To this day, Google Ad Manager is DoubleClick. It hasn't changed, it hasn't really added much functionality. It's the same thing. Programmatic ad buying, though, is collapsing. So you need to own your means of distribution. You need an email list. You need some kind of distribution list. Maybe it's social media. Obviously, that's a good place to go. LinkedIn is the best for business for sure. And the other thing I'll pitch here, and you can ask about this later, and then we'll do our radio show in 1 minute, is Mensch. mench.ai. These are AI buddies. These are AI agents that are street smart. They learn from interacting with you, and these can be deployed any number of ways across social media, on your websites. They can be delivered as ads. And as you can see, it's fascinating. Look at this. These are all AI generated personalities here, and they just talk to you. So this is also what's coming in the future, folks. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to get ready to start our radio show. And there's Amisha Gandhi of Signal 8 Agency. Welcome to the show, Amisha Gandhi. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm all right, man. We're about to do our radio show. So, folks, stand by. I'm going to get the stopwatch going.